It's a frequent occurrence for someone to ask me, what does it take to make a good technician? Well, the thing is, a good tech has an understanding of how things actually function. This means not only understanding the goal of the component or the system that that component functions within, but it also means having an understanding of the physics involved, the physical laws that drive that device or component. I want to be the first to welcome you to my new mini-series called System and Component Performance Evaluation. And this is part 1, based on DC motors. And the goal of this mini-series, in this instance for DC motors, is of course to educate. Because the more knowledge we have, the more confidence we have. And with more confidence comes more money in our pockets. Want to know more? Stick with me in this episode of The Train. The DC motor is an inductive device. That is, it capitalizes on electromagnetism to create work, in this case, physical movement or rotation. The DC motor is constructed using several main components: the armature, the commutator bars, the brushes, and the field magnets. The armature, being the main rotating component, is consisted of a shaft with several loops of copper conductive wire. Very long strands of wire are wrapped several times in different configurations to turn the conductive loops of wire into inductors. The inductors create a magnetic field around them when electrical current flows through them. The idea is to create a magnetic field that opposes that of the field magnets. Now, how do we introduce electricity to several fields of copper winding that's rotating? That's done so with the brushes. The spring-loaded brushes are conductive and allow battery voltage and ground to be supplied to the rotating armature. As the brushes come in contact with the commutator bars, each pair of opposing commutator bars serves as one end of each one of the inductive loops of wire. As electrical current leaves one brush, passes through the loops of wire, and returns to the ground path through the other brush, electrical current is established in one of the windings. Now, there are several configurations of electrical motors out there, but regarding the DC motor, generally speaking, voltage and ground are supplied to the motor through the brushes. The voltage or ground could be controlled by a relay, a computer, or a switch. Again, as electrical current begins to flow, current being the work performed, is what allows the electromagnetic field to occur, creating physical rotation of the motor. And because a DC motor is a common component found in every vehicle out there, whether it's a wiper motor, a starter motor, a fuel pump, a sunroof motor, and what have you, each one of these motors operates very similarly. And with that, evaluating them is similar as well. Leveraging the power of a lab scope lets us see circuit activity as well as the work being performed in graphical format. Being able to evaluate the DC motor using a multiple trace lab scope, we can evaluate action, reaction, testing. By leveraging the power of a current probe, we can evaluate the work being performed in the circuit. One of the best attributes to leveraging the power of a current probe is the fact that it is unintrusive. By simply implementing the current probe, opening the jaws and placing the jaws around the conductor, we can evaluate current flow through the circuit anywhere in that circuit. Step 1 to acquiring a proper waveform would be to visit service information for a wiring diagram. This will allow you to determine the circuit's configuration and offer you the best point of access for measurement. Deciding on the test location should not only include determining what points are easiest to access, but what information these test locations will actually offer you. What should be clear in the example wiring diagram given earlier is that the DC motor circuit is driven on the high side, meaning the circuit's permanently grounded, and when a switch closes, electrical current flows through the DC motor. Being able to monitor voltage supply, ground supply, and work simultaneously, we can determine if the component is working at all, if the component is working properly, and if not, is the fault internal to the component or on the voltage supply or ground supply side. Now, there are several attributes or characteristics to be found in the waveforms we've acquired. And learning to analyze those waveforms properly is crucial to diagnosis. Step 1 would be to visit service information to determine system configuration and operation. As we can see in the example given here, this DC motor is grounded at all times, and it's switched on the high side or voltage feed side. That means when we connect our lab scope, we want to view voltage supply, ground supply, and of course current, because current is the work being performed in the circuit. Seen here on this waveform capture is known as the inrush current. The inrush current is significantly higher than the rotating or mean average current for the DC motor. This is the amount of work necessary to get the DC motor turning. As the motor begins to turn, counter electromotive force is created. And this counter electromotive force opposes the inrush current and causes it to drop significantly. If one were to compare the inrush current to the mean average current, we tend to notice a 3-to-1 ratio of inrush current to average current. This is typical among a healthy DC motor circuit. Assuming an issue was present with inrush current and we couldn't achieve that 3-to-1 ratio when compared to the average or mean running current of the DC motor, it would mean that an issue exists in the circuit itself, meaning a poor voltage or ground supply. It'd be then that we would have to investigate for voltage drop in the circuit. The next portion we want to evaluate is the running current, sometimes known as the average current. Seen here are several peaks, and these peaks appear to be nearly identical in amplitude. This indicates good health of the DC motor armature, but more importantly, the commutator bars and brush contact. Assuming there was an issue with one of those peaks or several of those peaks, we would tend to see a waveform that looks something like this. And this is where intermittent operation of the DC motor tends to surface from time to time. Now, even on a healthy DC motor, there tends to be at least one peak that differs from the rest. And we can capitalize on that difference. That peak is known synonymously throughout the industry as a signature hump. The signature hump holds significance because it represents a single point on the DC motor armature. When that signature hump repeats itself, it indicates one complete rotation or one cycle of that pump. And we can capitalize on that. You see, there are 60,000 milliseconds in 1 minute of elapsed time. And if we were to take one cursor and place it at the signature hump, and take a second measuring cursor and place it at the next signature hump where the circuit completes a cycle, we now have the elapsed time necessary for that pump to complete one full cycle. If we simply divide that elapsed time into 60,000 milliseconds, it will yield us pump rotational speed in RPM. Now, of course, it's Ohm's law, the physical law that describes the relationship between voltage, electrical pressure, current flow, the work being performed in the circuit, and resistance, the opposition to that current flow. Taking that information, along with the information we have just established using the measuring cursors, we can make a determination of the overall health of the DC motor, serving as the component designed to accomplish a goal in a system. Let's say a fuel pump, for instance. Current, the work being performed, is reported on a lab scope in regards to amplitude. The more amplitude, or the higher the current flow value displayed on the lab scope, the more work that pump is performing. On the flip side, lower current amplitude, or less current being exhibited on the lab scope screen, is an indication of less work being performed. Now, if we have a low current value being displayed, and our measuring cursors indicate that the pump is operating slower, this can equate to a voltage drop or higher resistance in the motor or circuit itself. If we have a slow rotating pump and high current, it indicates possible mechanical resistance, like a binding pump or a pump pushing against a restricted fuel filter, for instance. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if that pump happens to increase in speed and has lower current or less work being performed, it's an indication that the pump motor is unloaded and it's performing very little work. This is a strong indicator that the pump is cavitating or sucking air, or perhaps lost its mechanical volumetric efficiency. So after all, knowledge is power, and we take the time to understand how things work, how to leverage the physics in this case, Much can be deduced simply by viewing the waveform acquisitions. And this is irregardless to the vehicle, the year, make, model you are addressing. The point is, a DC motor in this case is a DC motor. And they all function very, very similarly. And we evaluate them the same. So if we learn about the physics, about the DC motor in this case, and we learn to leverage the tools that tell the story, we can tell a lot about whether or not a component is functioning properly, and if not, where the fault may be located, all without intrusive disassembly. When you begin to get comfortable with what a good waveform looks like, a bad waveform becomes readily apparent. In other words, it sticks out like a sore thumb and should be very easy to identify. And with a little bit of drive and practice, you can make light work of a diagnostic situation like we described earlier. So take the time to implement your tools on known good vehicles. In other words, take the time to capture data about the functionality of a DC motor, like we demonstrated here today. Build familiarity and get comfortable with the tools that you have at your disposal. And since the DC motor is present on virtually every single year, make, model vehicle out there, you can carry this knowledge from one vehicle to the next. I'm Brandon Steckler, technical editor of Motor Age magazine. I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of The Trainer.